This is Canada Reads American Style, featuring two friends who love Canada Reads and Canadian literature. Welcome our host Rebecca from Michigan and Tara from Ontario. Hi everyone, it is Rebecca, and today I am speaking with Korean-Canadian author Jinwoo Park. Born and raised in Seoul, he has lived in various parts of North America and the UK since the age of 11 and is now based in Montreal. In 2021, he won the Wong-Chu Emerging Writers Award for his first manuscript, Oxford Soju Club, which will be published by Dundurn Press in September 2025. He has also been actively working as a literary translator after winning the Emerging Translator Award from the Literature Translation Institute of Korea in late 2023. Jinwoo is also an avid book reviewer and is active on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Jinwoo, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, I was just telling Jinwoo that I thought his Oxford Soju Club had been out for a while because I'd been hearing a lot of buzz about it. And then I found out later that it was coming out in September. So I'm glad I got to read it in advance of this a little bit. But I want to start off right away and just ask you, since very few people have read it so far, can you tell us a bit about your debut novel, Oxford Soju Club?
Yeah. So just to summarize, Oxford Soju Club, I'm holding the author copy here, by the way. It came in the mail last weekend. Still very surreal to hold this thing. But yeah, Oxford Soju Club is a book about three different Koreans. A South Korean restaurant owner, a North Korean spy, and a Korean-American CIA agent who get entangled in a game of espionage in the city of Oxford after a North Korean elite gets assassinated. And it's a metaphor on the lives of the diaspora. It's the way it depicts how diaspora immigrants wear different masks to survive in their adopted countries, and how they, come across each other, sometimes as enemies, sometimes as friends, and how those lines are usually very murky.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I thought was really fascinating, and you kind of alluded to it just now, about you have an opening note to readers. And I have to say, I don't really see that very often, but I loved having that message to readers there. So can you talk a little bit about that? And why did you decide to do that?
So why did I decide to have that Dear Reader letter? Well, the first thing was that obviously when the advanced reading copy was being set, the editor was like, hey, there's a place for an author's note that you can put. So I was like, okay, I'll put an author's note. And then I thought about it, and by the time this book was finished, it had already sort of done its job, which was that it was my therapy book. It kind of healed me in ways that I can't really describe. And I thought to myself, I kind of, since it's already done that for me, I would like to dictate a little bit the reading experience of this. And I always like that, especially when it comes to movies where they have like director's commentary and that kind of stuff. I like to know about the intentions of the creator. And in this case, I just thought to myself, let it actually be a bit of a conversation. Let me have a bit of a conversation, a bit of a whisper behind their ear as they read, kind of thing. So that's what I wanted to do. I suppose my intention wasn't to dictate how people would read or experience the book, but rather just be give a gentle nudge on like what this all could mean.
And so when you say that it healed you in ways you weren't necessarily expecting, when you were writing the book, or when you sat down to write this book or had the idea for it, did you know that's kind of what you wanted this book to do for you in some ways?
Not really. So the reason why I wrote this book, or at least the first draft of this book, was to sort of break a writing dry spell. So I did not write for about 3 years after I graduated from my creative writing degree. And around fall of 2018, I decided that I'm going to write a novel. I hadn't written for a while. So, and this was like right after soon after a very bad layoff. And I just thought of I had been thinking of an idea ever since I went to Oxford for my master's. And it was basically like Rush Hour, but in Oxford with like a North Korean and a South Korean spies. And it was going to be basically this like big like spy thriller that's really just an excuse to have car chases and bullets flying everywhere in Britain, out of all places, right? So I thought, okay, I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to let myself break my writing dry spell with this. So I wrote that in 2 months of just mindless writing where I was just having fun. And when I looked at the finished draft, I thought to myself, this is completely unreadable, but that was enjoyable. And then and I think it was then when I sort of noticed that there were certain themes that actually came through, between all the juvenile action scenes and the ridiculous like semi like pseudo romance plots and things like that. Like I began to see sort of the framework of a story that I actually wanted to tell, that I would actually want to present to other people. And that's kind of how it all began. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's really fascinating. So this is really funny because I want to just say too that I love that reader's note because I agree. Sometimes I want to know what an author's intent is a little bit to kind of help guide me because sometimes you can read this book, I think, in two ways. You can read it simply, and I don't want to say just as, but sort of just as a spy novel, right? You can enjoy it for that type of book if that's what you're looking for. But then there is all of that deeper meaning, which I really loved in the story. And so when I ask you this, do you hope readers are able to sort of plumb the emotion in that storyline, or is it okay if they just read it as a spy novel, I guess?
Yeah. The short answer to that is that I am fine with that. The long answer is that I always kind of intended it to be that way, as in like I wanted it to write something that people could still have fun with. But when at least I, or like people like me who have my perspective read it, they were able to notice those things, right? So and I think on a broader perspective, I think I was just coming off of reading a lot of Asian Canadian or Asian American like literature, and I've always sort of I've always waited for books that were more exciting, that were more sort of plot driven, that were more about like not just kind of showing the struggle and the perseverance and all those kind of things, but books kind of like The Sympathizer by Viet Nguyen. I think that was a book that really shocked me in terms of like, wow, Asian American literature could be like this. Like this is how we can tell our stories and still, like we can have our cake too. Wow,
Mhm.
like this is amazing. I want to write a book like this. So yeah, it was always intended to be a book that could just be fun if that's what people took out of it. I think really like that's one of my top priorities. Fun is it fun to read? Is it enjoyable? But then also, yeah, like in many ways, if the meaning comes through, that's great too, right? Yeah.
Because I love the spy parts of it, and I will tell you why. I'm not really somebody who's read I don't even know if I've ever read a spy novel, to be honest, but here's what I loved about it, and I wanted to know if you did research related to this because as I was reading it, I thought, you know, I think that's probably how the spy world really works, where they're all spying on each other and they all know they're spying on each other and they're all just doing their 9 to 5 job or their 12 to 12 job, whatever it is, spying on each other. And I thought that I found myself laughing at times where I was just thinking, this is so crazy. But I think that maybe that's what the world is like. So did you do research or is that just completely your design?
So in many ways, it's partly my design, but it's also partly research. So I kind of researched this more of a bottom up way. So whenever I would create a scene, I would think, does this make sense? And then I would go research whether that makes sense. So these were snippets from like, from various pieces of writing, whether it was a book or an essay. I also have a relative that worked in the intelligence community in Korea at a pretty high level. And without saying much, this relative would basically just tell me that intelligence work is super boring. It's just about like, and everybody knows. Like he would tell me, yeah, like we know where they are. They
Yeah.
know that they're being watched. It's all just like a charade, like a charade,
Yeah.
and we're just waiting for that one call that's going to kick off everything, but the call never comes, and it just it really really broke the sort of like the illusion that like spies were these like slick moving in the dark kind of people, but rather I think also I wanted to sort of like keep in mind that actually if you're going to blend in, you got to be boring, you got to be uninteresting, you got to be kind of you got to be a model minority, like you
Yeah.
got to be someone that nobody bothers. And I thought that really does also play well with the Asian American or Asian Canadian lore identity.
Yeah.
So yeah, half of it, I think it was just me thinking this would be fun, but yeah, the other half of it was yeah, like there was some sort of process where I checked, does this sound right, so that when you read it, it's like this is ridiculous. What the heck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say too, and I don't want to give any spoilers at all, but I just want to acknowledge that I love the ending. I love that whole ending of the book. And
Mm.
so I'm always curious, is that the ending you expected to always write, or did that change over time? I'm just curious.
I think that was the ending that I always envisioned, but it didn't come right away. I think so. Around, I think this was after the first two rewrites, and it was like the summer of 2020, and in the middle of like lockdowns and whatnot and the insanity, right?
Yeah.
I was out sort of hanging out with a friend of mine, and I was talking to him about the book, and I think around that time I had sort of sealed the fate of all the characters except one. And I was thinking about like, what does he deserve? Like, what does he deserve to do? And I think just randomly it occurred to me that, well, like he should move on, right?
Yeah.
Like I think because I was moving on, and I was
Oh,
kind of using these characters as my avatars to see what issues was I dealing with, what were the hangups that I was struggling with, what were the traumas I was gripping with, and one by one I would sort of send them off, and then yeah, when towards the end I thought to myself, okay, well, this is the blank slate. This is where he gets a new start, and I thought to myself that is the kind of new start that I desire to have.
yeah.
Like not literally, like I don't want to like leave my partner or something like that to have a new start,
Yeah.
but more in a mental sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Another part of your life is a being a literary translator. And I didn't really my question here was just so broad because I've never talked to a literary translator before, but I'm absolutely fascinating with what you do. So I kind of want to know what first of all, what prompted you to do it? And secondly, is it incredibly demanding? Like what is this job like? If you can kind of
Mm.
bring some clarity to me on this.
Right. So it's it's something that I've wanted to do, I think, since 2015, but I just didn't really go into it because it did not seem like a lucrative career path. And in many ways, that's true. It's really hard to make a living as a literary translator. A lot of my peers a lot of my more advanced peers, they either have day jobs or they have partners that they can rely on, or they do very expensive like memoir translation, or like commercial translation that that they have no soul to care for, but they do anyway because it pays the bills. And literary translation rarely pays bills, because the ones that often pay are either public grants or foundations, right? Philanthropic foundations. So I did not. I thought, okay, well, let me just go into the day job world where I earn money, and maybe this could be a passion thing. And that just never happened, because when you make those kind of decisions, that basically go, I'm gonna leave my passion, I'm gonna set it aside for the time being, and I'm gonna go earn money. You often never come back to the passion.
Yeah.
It just sits on the side forever, ever, like a lost dog waiting for its owner to come back. And I think around the time when but the thing is, I had always sort of like watched the friends and colleagues who have gone on to do that work, just either succeed or either sort of like make their mark in that world. And also Korean literature was just constantly on like a gradual rise over the years since 2015. So I thought to myself, okay, like I feel like I'm getting more and more signals that I really should go back to this. And then the pivotal moment really came in when I got to throw my hat in the ring for this award, this Emerging Translators Award from LTI Korea. And it wasn't even for the literature portion. It was for the webtoon portion. It's for comics, right? So so I did it, and then I won, and I was so like I just thought to myself, like, but how? Like how did I win? like I'm not like I'm a super amateur. I thought I was just really just giving it a shot. But for some reason I did. I won that award. So I think that was when I realized I would like to try this out really seriously. Like I think that this, if there was ever a sign for me to say, let's do this, this is it.
Yeah.
So I just kind of dived into it. I began to look for resources more seriously. I, like chopped up my schedule to afford some time that I did not have. Waking up at like 5 a.m. to attend like workshops, because 5 a.m. is 7 p.m. in Korea, and that's when the evening classes are in Korea.
Yeah.
So I would just do these insane things to try to do whatever I could. And yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty recent entrant into this craft. I only started, that award was back in December 2023. So I've been really working this for about a year and a half. And in that year and a half, a lot of things happened. So like last year, during summer, I had 2 weeks of training at LTI Korea. That was basically a career workshop, and I made a lot of contacts then. And then through that, I was able to sort of get a lot of like sample translation gigs, and then also a full translation gig. So yeah, that's how I sort of made my way into literary translation.
So do you have like an agent or something that helps you then find manuscripts or something? Like how do you take that next step into actually doing the work?
So this is a thankless work. It's one of those things, because there's a lot of prep work to be done. So I have an agent. Her name is Safa El Wahabi at the RCW agency. And it's a very prestigious agency. It's all thanks to my mentor and friend Anton Her, who was who's also with Safa, and then he referred me to her. So then I was able to sort of be her client as well, which was very fortunate because like this is not an opportunity that's easily given.
Yeah.
So there I do have an agent, but the agent's role here is to basically make a deal with a foreign publisher. So in this case, foreign meaning like English market publishers, and for in my case that would be just English market publishers because I translate into English.
Mm-hmm.
So before that ever happens, I need to prepare the material. So let's say there's a book that I want to translate. I would need to either translate, let's say, at least like 20 to 30 pages of samples for it. And usually that's not enough. You need to translate maybe like quarter to even like 1/3 of the entire book. Even sometimes I've even seen like half of the entire book translated as sample to give. Because when the English publisher that gets pitched reads it, they need to be able to get a full sense of what the book is about. And if even with a half a book, they don't know what the heck is going on. So you also need to come up with a synopsis, right? So you have to write up a synopsis, you have to write up a proposal, and you have to also decide, are you going to do this funded or are you going to do this unfunded? So if you do unfunded, obviously that's your time, right? But if you want to get funded, then you have to either you have to apply through a like a granting agency of a sort. So LTI Korea is one of them. Daesan Daesan Foundation is another one. There's also like a publishing agency. It's a public institution that also gives out grants, KPIPA, and they're sort of like the trifecta of giving money out to translators. So you either go to those three and ask for money, and it's very competitive, right? Like every time their grant applications open, everyone just rushes in, and there's also, and it doesn't also mean that like you're gonna have to do, you might have to like choose a sample that might actually have more of a chance, like, right? Like, so they do have a list of recommended texts, or you somehow make some sort of a deal out of the publisher of the book, or their sort of, or the Korean agency that the books are being represented by. So maybe you can agree to have like a fee of $1,000 to translate a few chapters. So it's an ordeal, and you're rarely paid what you do anyway. Like when you turn this amount into hours and stuff like that, it's not that much. So it's really a labor of love. And that's how, once you actually have a sample, and once you actually have, or like a full text, you take that, and then and depends on how the contracts are structured too. Sometimes the sample contracts are so that like actually no, like the Korean agency or like the Korean publisher reserves the right to actually try to pitch this book. So there are moments like that too. But then usually what I get to do is, if I have a sample, whether unfunded or funded, if I have a sample and I have it ready to go, then I can work with my agent to try to pitch it to places. And if it gets accepted, that's great. We're in business with a book deal. But that rarely happens, right? Like it's a tough needle to thread.
Yeah. So let me ask you, I don't know much about translations or this work at all, but here's my question. So I know I was reading, or I had heard an interview with a translator for Murakami, somebody who's done like a bulk of his work. No, so would that be your goals, to have, like, if you were so good that you had one author that you were regularly translating, would you want that versus like a variety of authors? How do you feel about that if your career took off like wildfire?
Right. I mean, yeah. I wonder if we were talking about Jay Rubin.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
But he has like two, and one of them is Jay Rubin, and his translations I do prefer. But then on what you said about is it my goal to have like to be known as the translator of this writer? I guess my goal is to be able to just choose my projects is really the priority, and whether I stick with a writer or not is secondary. But I do want to say my priority is also developing a good relationship with one writer and just being that writer's go-to person.
Yeah.
Because that means that we have chemistry. Like you like how I translate and I like how you write. So
Yeah.
we are very compatible. And in many ways also I want to be, just I want like a friend
Yeah.
in that sense. I want us to be the dynamic duo, So I would love that relationship. And it'd be nice also if I had like more than one of those relationships, right?
Yeah.
Like if I could be the go-to pair with more than one writers, that would, I mean, like career-wise, that would set me for
Yeah.
life. But also it would just be a lot more enjoyable to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm not asking you to give any names or anything, but are there any authors right now in Korea that you're like, "Oh, I would love to work with that author?"
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's one author whose name is Chung Serang, Serang Chung, and she is a very like she's a genre bending writer. She writes in many genres, and then she writes recently she wrote like a historical fiction based in like old Korean times. Like we're
Mm.
talking like before like the Joseon dynasty stuff. Like when this was back in like Silla era, and yeah, she wrote a historical mystery novel about it's a detective novel series, and it's about a woman who has to pretend to be a man in order to carry the family name and save it from extinction, because noble houses go extinct when you have no more men, right? So basically she solves crimes around the capital city, and it's super good. It's like, but then I thought, but the other book that I read of her was like this like paranormal genre book, and then I also read like a family drama novel as well, and I'm just like, wow, this author's great.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I was with this author, I would never be bored. Because
Yeah.
there's always something new. Yeah, so that's like one author that I would really, really want to work with. Although she is very high in demand, so I don't know if I'm going to be that person. I have thrown my hat in the ring, and I have like asked my agent like look into it please, and I have a sample read, and I've even talked to the writer herself when I was in Korea. So like
Ooh.
I have made myself, I'm known.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if the turn comes, I will take it. But that's whether if the turn comes, because I feel like there's quite a few translators that are actually like waiting with samples in hand that have lined up before me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see. But there's another writer whose name is Woo Sung-eun, Sung-eun Oh, and then he is a writer based in Busan, and I really got into his work through this novel called "There Is No Las Palmas," and it's about a man who's fishing, whose cargo boat captain father one day just vanishes on sea in a thick fog, and it's about his sort of search to find his father, but also sort of retracing his father's steps in his hometown to like figure out his life, because he realizes that he never really knew his father, and his father had this like amazingly illustrious history as a sailor. And it's really, it struck me because it was it's that process of discovering who your father is. That's something that I feel very close to, because my dad didn't really tell me much when we moved to Canada, and he always told me like, it was for your education, it was for a better life, very like vague things, right? that
Yeah.
that you're supposed to take on. take on face value. And then later on, when he told me the nuances, I was like, oh my God, like, why did you not tell me any of this? And he said, like, well, it wasn't your business. I'm like, it sounds like my business to me, So
Yeah.
fathers, they just hide things there. And I, as a very like confused son, just always wanted to like figure out like, but why? Like, why did we do this? Why did we do that? Why did we leave here? Why did we come here? So that really captured me. And it's also very like, it has these like tinges of Latin American magic realism with it. And I thought like, this writer really writes well. But the real sort of like impetus for this was, so I was commissioned to do a full translation of this book through an agency. And then there was some trouble with sort of like the payment that was coming through or not, in this case, like there was some trouble. I won't go into it too much, but the point was that the writer really put his foot down on saying like, the translator gets paid, period, in full. I will not accept anything like less. And I mean, it was his money because he won this money through a grant from the city of Busan. So he was like, yeah, I intended to pay the translator. And then so through that, I kind of like really like got through that sort of like experience of like talking about this and all that, like we got really close. And I just feel like, wow, this guy really like fights on my behalf. And that's when I also realized a relationship that you have with the writer and the type of relationship that you have, it also determines sort of like how much you want to sort of fight for the work. Because already I love the work, but now that I have all this history with him, all this background with him, I'm going to fight for the work even harder. And I think that's very important. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, thank you so much for sharing all that. That really, really opened up my eyes, and I think I understand it a little bit better now. So, I think you might be the most active author on social media that I've interviewed, and I wondered if you think this social media, especially TikTok, has or will change traditional publishing marketing strategy.
Well, I think frankly, those marketing strategies have already changed, right? Like I think what I'm doing is nothing new essentially. I believe that it's always kind of been like this, to be fair. Like publishing seeks more of a sure deal, let's say, and they want to sort of they don't want to gamble too much. That's why celebrities get book deals,
Yeah.
right? But I do get it when like when my peers say, now I need an Instagram, man, like I gotta go on Instagram, like I don't I'm not even I don't even do Twitter, so it's I totally understand. The problem here is that we are in competition with literally just every single piece of media out there. We're not in competition with other books. We're in competition with the short videos. We're in competition with YouTube videos. We're in competition with this and that. And I think in many ways we have to sort of show our face and go like, hey, I know you are watching, this video of a panda rolling around, or like you watch this like soccer shot into the net that is very impressive, but you've watched it for 20 times. Like,
Yeah.
why don't you try a book, right? Like I think it doesn't hurt to sort of shoulder your way into those spaces and try to make some room for yourselves. It doesn't mean that you have to do it. I don't think you're obligated to do it, but it doesn't hurt to do it. And I know that that may sound like, well, duh, like obviously, it never hurts to do anything extra. But in many cases, it's about the time, right? Like the time and commitment that you have to put into this, and that's always work. And like why do publishers have like marketing departments if writers are going to have to do all this stuff? Well, and I think that's the other thing too, right? Like I think we are coming into a time when budgets are stretched. departments are exhausted, and they cannot be chasing everyone down in terms of like their promotion and their marketing. So when push comes to shove, you're all you got.
Yeah.
And you have to be your own advocate. And if you don't know how, then I think you have to learn. You really have to. You have to learn how to be your own advocate. And you have to learn how to fight for you, right? Like my book, like this is my baby. And I'm going to throw all the punches that I can throw. And for some reason, I mean, for some people that may come out in different ways, right? Like for some people, it might not be TikTok. It might be maybe YouTube. For me, it just happened to be TikTok for some reason, and now a little bit more with Instagram. So everyone finds their own way of getting their message out there, and I think social media is a part of it. And I invite people to try it out, right? Like I always tell people, try it out. If it feels like work, that's when you should stop. But if it feels like you found a rhythm that is natural, that you can kind of keep going, keep. I think creating, like imprinting yourself in people's memory is like a long game. It's just all about like how long you do it. It's not about how well you do it. So if you can keep this up for a long, long time, if you found a way to make yourself be known out there for a long, long time, and keep it up without stressing yourself out or burning yourself out, I think that's the answer. And that doesn't have to be social media. And I think social media is just another tool through which you put the noise out there. Yeah.
But I will say though, like I had said earlier, I actually thought because I love TikTok, so I'm on it all the time. I don't do anything, I just watch. But I really thought your book had been out for a while, and I'd already decided I wanted to read it. It was already on my list. I'm going to read this book. And then I find out your publisher reached out, asked if we wanted to read it. And I said, absolutely. And then I thought, I think this book is already out. And then I looked it up and found out it wasn't coming out for months. So I thought, however I heard about it, whether it was through your TikTok originally, I don't know. But I just know that somehow your book was imprinted to me many, many, many months before it was coming out. So I just want to say, and I do know a lot of authors talk about being kind of introverted. So that's why I feel like it's going to take a push, I think, to get authors to do like heavy duty social media, right?
Oh yeah, I definitely think so. But I think it's because authors are introverted, I think this could really work for them well. I am not an extrovert by any means, and I do freeze up every now and then when I have to like talk on stage. I had my first moderating gig at Motive in Toronto. That's it's a festival under TIFA, and yeah, that was one of the hardest things I did. I was so nervous. I was so tense. But whenever I talk on, whenever I talk on like my phone, I'm never nervous in front of this thing. I never am, and I find myself very calm and composed, and I'm able to sort of control my what I'm saying, and I think that could be actually a good thing. A lot of writers may find that actually enjoyable, like the fact that they can like really, really pick their words. I mean, should they choose to, and why wouldn't you? But so I feel like I want to sort of like flip the question around. I think social media is the perfect medium for writers. Yeah, because they can control everything that goes out there themselves, and they can also choose to engage with it or not, right? Like they can choose how it's being engaged with. You can turn off comments, you can ban toxic people, but you can't do that in real life, right? If a toxic person is shouting at you, then you can't just be like, like you can't ban them, right? But on online spaces you can. So I think it's actually more fitting that writers try to make social media as their sort of like town square instead of an actual town square. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for that. Thanks. One of the things we love to do on the podcast is we love sharing recommendations with our listeners. So are you currently reading anything? And are there any titles or authors besides the ones you've just mentioned that you've read that you'd like to recommend?
I want to recommend, first of all, I recently finished reading something, and it's called The Hype Beast by Adnan Khan. Yeah. You might have heard about it. I think it's a recent release. Like it got released. It's been out this year, and it's just blistering. Like it's amazing.
Wow.
Like so it's about a Toronto-based immigrant crook who sort of loses his girlfriend to a cult. And the cult is, I say a cult, but it's really like a group of, it's basically this religious group that is being led by a very charismatic like religious leader who is modeled after, do you know the incident of Omar Kadir, the child soldier that got captured by the American forces in Afghanistan, and then he was brought to Guantanamo Bay, and then the Canadian government had to pay I think it was like $10 million in remuneration for his or something like that, for his wrongful imprisonment, because he was a child soldier. They basically said like he's not culpable for this. So it's a figure, he has a figure that's modeled after that, and I just thought that is amazing, like in all sorts of like astonishing ways. And Adnan writes with such like power, like he just writes with this force that I've rarely experienced from books. So I totally recommend The Hype Beast by Adnan Khan. Like it's awesome. The other thing that I would recommend would be, oh my God, I mean, there are so many books I want to recommend, right? Like, there's so many books. Right now, what I'm reading right now are Korean books. I usually read a lot of Korean books because of the nature of my craft. But another book that I would recommend would be Monica Kim's The Eyes Are the Best Part. I think that's also something that a lot of people probably would have come across by now. It's just, I had the blessing of reading the advanced reading copy for this book back in the winter of 2023, I think. And it's about a woman, it's about a Korean American woman whose life gets recently disrupted with her Korean father's sudden departure. And well, really, he abandons the family, really. And then her mom starts dating a white man that completely disrupts their family dynamic in a very negative way. And she starts to develop, our main character starts to develop an appetite for blue eyeballs of men. Like it's particularly blue. That's there's an emphasis there. So there's a lot of like female rage in this book that is quite just very cathartic, really. Very cathartic.
We love female rage on our podcast. So yes, I've got to read this.
And it's like, it just kind of steps on the gas and it doesn't let go until the end. So I loved it. It recently got greenlit as a movie, I think, or at least as being sort of like worked on with Greta Lee as for her directorial debut. So it's a huge hit, and once you read it, you'll see why. Yeah.
Okay, those two. I mean, those are two brilliant titles, but
I'll stop here because I feel like if I continue, then I will just take up the rest of the podcast with just more book recommendations.
No, but you gave us two really great ones there, and I actually, the other ones, the ones you were talking about, the Korean authors, those are, I really hope those come out at some point in the near future, and that we get to read those, and that you translate them. That would be awesome. But I hate to ask this question because your first novel is coming out in September, and it's not September yet, but are you currently working on anything else for us that we can look forward to beyond Oxford Soju Club as an author or as a translator? Anything else that you feel like you're in a really good place with it right now?
Oh yeah. So this is, I guess I'll just say it because I've told this to a few people. I am working on a book, and it's I always say it's very close to finish, but it's really that like last 10% is just taking all the time in the world. It's my second novel. It's it's about a reunified Korea.
Ooh.
And it's about a reunified Korea after a sudden collapse and a quick civil war within the North. So the premise is that like the northern sort of the Kim family regime collapses from within with a mysteriously supported coup, and basically what happens afterwards, and then to manage this crisis, the South Korean government declares to the world, to the Koreans all around the world, to return home, to come back and build a new country, and that's sort of where it kicks off. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that sounds really fascinating. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm looking forward to that one. So,
Yeah, I'm looking
good.
forward to that one.
Yeah. Good luck with that. I
Yeah.
would 100% read that for sure. So, well, Jinwoo, I really do appreciate you coming on and talking about Oxford Soju Club. I want to encourage everybody to pre-orders are the best way to support an author. Pre-orders are really important, so think about that, or check with your public library, make sure they get it pre-ordered as well. And we hope that you come back and chat with us when the next book comes out as well.
Yeah, of course. I'll be looking forward to that. Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Happy reading, everybody.
Thank you for joining us on our bookish journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing Canada Reads American Style wherever you listen. You can connect with the podcast and Rebecca on Instagram at Canada Reads American Style, and with Tara at On a Branch Reads. Until next time, keep reading.